Good girl. Papa.
We cannot move out, and this movement of the papers are also very slow. I hope by the next year it will be a autonomous body with the board of members with the chairman as the prime minister, education minister, union education ministers, and others. Uh, and Shadi is one of the prominent director of this new baby, new to be born baby. And even otherwise, without the government label, we are going ahead, and we draw sustenance and courage from people like you, so that this can be a non-official body, which will derive lot of framework, lot of activities with an innovative culture, because now innovation is necessary in all our life. So Shadi's innovative approach and his ideas and his leadership will take the libraries into a new area of knowledge. I welcome Dr. Shadi again, and kindly and Mr. Dr. Vignesh. He's the he's the creator and this what you called this technical, because he only wanted me to have this reading celebration, the digital platform, and he is not sleeping for the last 1 month. He is in the development of the website, its other programs, is conceiving everything, and our reading app, the National Reading Mission, PN Punikar National Reading Mission app, is also ready, but due to technical problems, it is not yet operational. And I am sure that within the next 2 or 3 days, a reading app will be also be available, and you can enjoy it through your mobile phone, and so that more and more people can participate in these activities. I welcome Dr. Shadi to deliver his imaginative and creative, not only creative, and very innovative ideas in developing the libraries as a real knowledge centers. Shadi, please come.
Thank you so much. Is it audible to everyone?
Now it's audible.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you, Balagopalji. Thank you, Dr. Vignesh, for asking me to join this event. It's always a proud privilege to be associated with the P.N. Panika Foundation, which has spearheaded this whole idea of the national mission. Dr. Balagopal, who is with us, is the architect of the whole thing, and I've had the privilege of working with him. And if I were in India, I would be present, throughout the celebrations. But since I am now based in Canada, we are in lockdown, a partial lockdown. It is going to be difficult for me to be there all the time, but I would do my best to join every webinar that's organized. I have been given this 45 minutes to address the 214 participants who have joined us, who I understand to be more of academic librarians, starting from school libraries. So I'll basically fine-tune my lecture along. So basically speaking to the role that the academic librarians could play. So I am using a PowerPoint presentation. I would request the host to enable me to share my screen if it is possible.
You are already a panelist, so you can share your presentation. Share.
Yeah, it says the host disabled participant screen sharing.
Just give me a moment.
Sure, sure. No problem. So I would like this webinar to be more interactive. what I'll do, I'll keep looking at the webinar chat. So I'm glad that all of you are used to using the chat mode. So I will prompt you to, put in your comments in the webinar chat session. So accordingly, we'll proceed. So I would request everyone to be prepared to share any of your ideas so that it doesn't become a one-way street. I'm not here to lecture you, but more than that, I want to learn from each one of you.
So I made you as a host. Are you able to share your screen, Shadi?
Yeah, I can. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
So, okay, so the topic has been the role of academic libraries in the promotion and reading habits among their constituencies. So I would like to pose this question to the audience as to why reading is important. What do you think? Why do you think reading is important in your context? So if you can, you could always put in your comments out there. I would like to give 2-3 maybe 15-20 seconds for you to add your comments. I'm not able to see the comments though, Vignesh. Are there people putting in their comments? Instead of raising hands, if you could put in your comments, that would be very helpful. I'm finding it difficult to find the comments. Okay, question answer. Okay, so yeah, I'm able to now see. Are you able to see my screen still? Okay, so I see all wonderful comments. Reading takes us to a new world. It gives us knowledge. It enhances knowledge, self-learning. Reading enhances us, pleasure activity, creates new insights, get extra knowledge. So there's a lot of comments around the idea of knowledge and increase vocabulary, make person intelligent. Nina Girish is, reading helps to improve your thinking, vocabulary, speaking, creative skills. Excellent. Adarsh Kumar, reading is a complex cognitive process of decoding symbols to derive meaning. It's a form of language processing. Inspires us. Urmila says it enhances our skills. So excellent. So basically, reading is important for multiple reasons. And the reason why Dr. Balagopal has emulated his father's footprints, who created the first reading campaign of India in Kerala. And today, Kerala is a very developed society. In terms of human development indicators, Kerala stands out. Even when it comes to COVID-19 pandemic suppression, Kerala is a model for the country. So it's all possible because of the people's participation, and people have been quite participative in terms of containing the social evil in the state, and we see the results of the same. So the way that Shri P.N. Panikkar conceived the idea was he thought, reading enhanced democracy, reading enhanced the economic social life, reading enhanced critical thinking, reading enhanced the quality of life for people. P.N. Panikkar also felt reading preserves cultures, reading enables civic participation by people, it creates empathy, it enables us to understand relationships, it helps us, as somebody mentioned, to gain deeper understanding of ourselves, of our society, of people around us. It, in many cases, it reduces stress. And in the elderly, who are suffering from dementia, for instance, reading is recommended as an activity. It helps, as Adarsh mentioned, cognitive benefits. It provides. It enables us as lifelong learners, rather to say. So, reading has multiple benefits out of it, and we are sure that we appreciate, as librarians, we appreciate the activities that we do around creating the reading habits. Now, I want to ask another question to you as to what it takes to run a campaign. Maybe, as you answer, I can answer you as well. Campaign is something that's around an issue. An issue here, as Dr. Balagopal identified very aptly, is many people are not reading, and reading is a basis for growing, and growing is the basis for actually renaissance, prosperity, and not only individual prosperity, but the societal prosperity. So around that idea, reading was conceived. But he also had a goal. He had a goal of reaching out to the downtrodden, reaching out to the people who do not actually have easy access to reading material. So the 300 million people that the Prime Minister is entrusted with this responsibility upon the P.N. Panikkar Foundation, the 300 million people of India who otherwise would not have easy access to reading material are the ones that we are expected to reach out to. So all the actors that are there can only run a campaign. It's not a campaign that could be run by one individual. It's a campaign to be run by the society at large. And in this, we see librarians and the school teachers and the panchayat, actors as key steer and key actors, experts as resources in this whole idea. And basically, we need to plan for the success if a campaign were to be successful. And we need to have campaign tactics. And one of the tactics is to involve schools, school students, school teachers, and school librarians. And similarly, the college librarians and others, public librarians, the people who serve the public are the ones who are going to steer the campaign. And the enormous amount of volunteers that Dr. Balagopal has been able to spearhead. So these are the people who are going to be part of the campaign. Now, while you are thinking how you could take part in it and what roles librarians could play, particularly the academic librarians can play, I have some thoughts, and I thought I would share some of those thoughts. And let me start with this whole notion of the 5 laws of librarianship. What are the 5 laws of librarianship? All of us know books are for use, every reader his or her book, every book his or her reader, save the time of the reader, and library is a growing organism. And we do understand the first 4 laws very well because it relates to our daily life. Books are the
Shadi,
way.
sorry
Yeah?
to intervene. So can you make your presentation in full slide? It's currently we are not able to see it properly. At the bottom,
Okay.
you have a full screen view, right? That
Okay,
slideshow. Yeah.
okay.
Yes. Now it's fine. Thank you, Shadi. Sorry to intervene.
Okay, sorry about that. If I do this, I'm not able to see the comments from our participants. That's fine. I think I'll quickly move ahead with yeah, I think I can still see the comments. Okay, so the 5th law is something very interesting. It talks about library as a growing organism. What is an organism? Organism is a living being It's something like a person, a bacteria, or an animal. Organism is also a notion for reproductivity, growth, adaptability, and what they call maintaining of homeostasis conditions. So, you know, it's an interesting term that Dr. Ranganathan had used when he proposed the 5 laws of librarianship. And today, in the pandemic situation, we do realize that the 5th law is all the more important, because libraries are not confined to the 4 walls, not confined to the public space. It's now online, digital. It's an institution that grows, that adapts to the conditions, and that it is an independent institution, but it's also an interdependent institution that that enables us to bank upon the collectiveness of the librarianship to provide a larger service to the society. So when it comes to the academic librarianship, you know, the constituencies of the academic librarianship is the teachers, the students, and basically the other you know, external professors and guest contributors to the daily life of a student. So we do serve basically these 2 constituencies. And, you know, we need to now recognize our role as to how we want to now expand the libraries beyond the 4 walls and the books that you have, to networking with others and also reaching out to larger constituencies. But also, how do you promote reading, and what are the constraints facing your constituencies today when it comes to promotion of reading? You know, we heard about the benefits of reading in the larger context, and when we learned about the larger context, we also recognized and realized that reading was not pertaining only to this subject matter. If somebody is studying in a school or in a college or in a university, reading is not only pertaining to their subjects that they are pursuing in their schools or academic institutions. It has a larger purpose. We talked about democracy, we talked about economy, we talked about civic participation, we talked about enhancing understanding, relationships, and so on and so forth. So when it comes to that, how do you promote reading amongst the 2 major constituencies that we work with, which are teachers, educators, and the students themselves? And the major constraint today is the gadgets and the peer pressure and the gaming. And you know, when it comes to today, students only want to pursue their subject studies otherwise the rest of the time they would like to, if given a choice, they would like to spend a lot of time online in social media, interacting with one another, gaming and playing and whatnot. So we do have our own challenges in promotion of the reading habits among our constituencies. But yet, you know, within our power, we can do a lot of things. And I'm here today to discuss some of the ideas as to what we could do to make it interesting for our constituencies. Now, as Ranganathan said, libraries are going to be growing organisms. It only, you know, in a common sense, in a very simpleton language, it means we want to make our libraries dynamic. But you know, focused more in terms of what exactly we could do. You know, let me ask you this question. Maybe run through some of the, you know, ideas you already shared. You know, in your chat box. Let me see if I'm able to open the chat box. Yeah, so I can see. So somebody says I'm not audible. I'm audible, right? Okay. So how to enhance reading and bring users, students close to book being far. So people are saying creative thinking, create an awareness, reading and okay. So there are lots of ideas that you had already shared, but what a librarian could do in terms of promoting reading habits. that's something that we want to look at, and we want to address that issue. So if you can, you can always put in your ideas in the chat box. I have 3 ideas to share today, but but I would like to actually learn from you as to what would you do. So there are some questions that and comments that you produced. How library management can be done? How can we make e-libraries? Okay, so walkathon on reading promotion, that's one idea. Book review competition, another idea. Group reading, creative interest for reading. Do quiz through activities. We can attract students with puzzles, using reading competition, online webinars, book lamp for remote village, reading competition again, essay competition, movie shows based on fiction, reading a book challenge. So you have wonderful ideas. I know you are actually suggesting a lot of ideas, but today I'm going to, in addition to the ideas that you're proposing, I'm going to talk to you about these 3 things that or rather 4 things that I put on the screen. One is the information and digital literacy component that I want us to really think about, because this is an important activity that every librarian could do. And particularly when it comes to librarians at the school level and at the academic institutions, you have a greater opportunity and the responsibility. So this is where you can go beyond using books and the basic provision of information and books to people to, as somebody, Nina Girish again says, information literacy is something that we should pursue. Now, how do we actually become real actors? Now, as librarians, I think every 3 months, we should be in a position to conduct what we call the information and digital literacy classes amongst our students and our professors and teachers who are our stakeholders. Now, what is information and digital literacy in the context of a public, in an academic library, but also in the larger context of the reading mission? It actually enables people to understand the structure and the expectation of any subject, any course that people are pursuing. Now, people maybe, if it is an academic university library, they may be pursuing arts, science, engineering, a particular subject. So why, nobody in the university or in the school or in the college teaches the students as to what is expected of them beyond, scoring marks and passing the exams. It's the librarians are the, these are the only people who enable people to understand why the course is, what is the structure of the course, what is expected of them of the course. The entire syllabus is something that a librarian can deal with. Librarian can make a student understand the expectation about that person's perceivance of that particular course. You can enable the students to understand the articulation skills. How do you articulate a thought process? How do you effectively use a digital space to basically access, search for information, and define your what you are searching for? As librarians, we have been taught to do reference questioning and to help the reader to basically define what he or she is looking for, and define that in search terms, and then search in certain, using certain logics and certain methods and so on. Of course, Google does a lot of things today, but again, as librarians, we have the ability to educate them as to how they can basically define the characteristics of different kind of information, and how do they pursue the various sources of knowledge that is held in a library within the four walls, but also in the cyberspace. We enable them to develop search strategies. We enable them to understand what is filtering when it comes to understanding the search results that they get, and how do they evaluate the search results, each information and knowledge piece that they are receiving as a return of their search. How do they critically evaluate and manage information? How do they reference information when it comes to reproducing it in their project work, in their essays, in their writings, or producing articles? How does one incorporate sources into their own articulation? How do they avoid plagiarism in terms of producing proper bibliographies and so on, reference and so on and so forth? So we see even in the school libraries, a lot of projects being given to students, and students are expected to undertake the responsibility of basically producing project work, essays, articles, and so on. And this is where a librarian plays a very key role. And this is the foundation that we put in terms of appreciating information, evaluating knowledge, evaluating the information sources, avoiding usage of fake information, critically looking at evaluating the sources and the authors and so on, but also properly referencing so that one could be a part of the whole scholastic work, the scientific work that goes on and on. That's where the knowledge is reproduced. I think librarians have a greater role to play in this whole process. The second rationale for librarians to undertake a major responsibility is to inculcate that critical thinking, logical thinking, and reasoning and argumentation among children, among our students. And how do we do it? We do it by training our students and also the teachers. Quite often the teachers also reproduce what they have developed 15, 20 years ago. But as librarians, we have the opportunity to enable them to reflect, analyze information. We enable them to acquire a body of information, collect a lot of evidence, and to come up with the creative ideas, structure their arguments when it comes to actually producing an article, or even making a lecture, or talking to the students, or students acting as teachers in terms of presenting their presentations and their lectures. There's a lot that we could teach the students to do in terms of, as I mentioned, reflection, analysis, acquisition of information, being creative, being aware of their situation, asking basic questions on the topic that they are researching, adjusting their own perspective about the topic, appreciating the previous body of literature that has emerged on that particular topic, and to grow that topic with adding their own perspective, and develop a foresight, and also become what they call, Amartya Sen calls the argumentative Indian, the idea of argumentation, which is all about debating and discussing ideas, agreeing to disagree, but also having the ability to communicate, to put forth one's own ideas, whether it is in the form of an essay, an article, or articulation in examinations. And this is the skill that as an academic body, we are expected to promote. And unfortunately, in today's world, other than the librarians, not many people are interested in providing that critical thinking skill to the student community. And I think that's a greater role that we could play. And I also wanted to, in addition to the information and digital literacy and critical thinking, talk to you quickly about the open education resources and how academic library community has become champions in OER, what they call the open education resources, and also impacting the student community. Let me go to the next screen and give you a little more idea of what is OER. And today, it's all the more important in the context of COVID that, people are not able to come into the lecture room or the school or to the college lecture hall to listen to a professor. It's all now online. If you're lucky, if you have the technology at your disposal to be in a webinar room, but quite often not everyone has the opportunity to access this medium of instruction from teachers. So one of the things librarians could do is to ensure that every subject that is taught in the school or a college or a university, the textbooks are open and made available in e-form. And somebody asked me a question earlier from the audience as to how one could develop e-libraries. And the first step for an e-library in an academic context is basically to identify where the open textbooks are for each and every subject, not only the subject books, the instructional books, but also the reference material and the articles, the other resources that are associated with the books that are used for teaching, the textbooks, is something that we could create. We could create our own e-library of subject books, references, allied articles, and we could end up creating this in a manner that every student, every professor who accesses our e-resources is able to gain access to not only the textbooks but also the other reference material. Now, the research shows that open textbooks save a lot of money among students. They can download, they can keep on their mobile phones, they can read at their own pace. And this is enabled mainly through the librarians, by the librarians. Now, there is also a OER movement, the Open Education Resources movement at large in the world. And it's very interesting to see that, OER is very, has come to stay. And there are 5 principles of OER, what they call, and librarians would understand these 5 principles: reuse, revise, remix, redistribute, and retain. Now, when it comes to knowledge resources, it's all for reusing, and I think we need to be able to reuse every knowledge resource that's available. That's where we create our own repository. But librarians should also have the ability to help the professors and the teaching community to revise this reading material in their own context. And that's a skill that the librarians can teach the teachers and the professors to revise reading material. And of course, they do get a lot of support from curriculum design teams and the academic committees and whatnot. But again, they come to the libraries to access knowledge, to revise the resources. There is also the skill that the librarians possess in terms of remixing, mixing our resources of our own library, our own school, our own college, with that of what is produced by other teachers outside our own constituency. And as librarians, we have access to those. So we have the ability to bring in some interesting ideas others have produced and help people to remix it in their own teaching context. Now, once you remix it, you could produce a new version of the document in such a way that that could be redistributed and retained in your own library. So one thing that I would argue for, if at all the librarians would want to really stand out, is to have a small production studio within the library. And many academic institutions have done this. It takes very little effort today to create a production studio in your own library today, with the mobile phones and the editing tools and the archival tools that we have. It is so easy for us to create a recording studio within the library in a corner, where you could ask your professors to come and talk to a topic. You can ask the students to come and talk to a topic in terms of expressing their own ideas, their own understanding. So if you create a pool of resources on any topic for that matter, then these also become a resource for your e-library. This is how you produce reading material. Rather than just promoting reading material, you become a producer of reading material, and it doesn't take much. It's a kind of a role that the journalists play in the outer world, in the external world, where they go and find information, package it, and disseminate it to the users. Similarly, we can also do the same in terms of inviting our professors to come and explain certain topics that you find your students finding hard to understand. These could be 2-minute, 1-minute audio and video productions which you could produce and keep it. And you could generate a FAQ on things that children don't understand, the students don't understand. You could create an FAQ library. You could create a library of learning objects. You could create a library of topics and issues students find it hard to understand, and it doesn't take long. It doesn't have to be only your professors and your teachers doing it, but you could also mix it. You could also gain access to a lot of videos, like Khan videos is a good example of how one could use the external online resources to basically identify what is useful for our own constituency and making it available. The production studios and the editing tools enable us to also curate content and reproduce it. And finally, I would also like to encourage you to create a librarians network, OER network. If you have produced in your own library, say 100 learning resources, and if you are in touch with 10 other librarians, and each one of them having their own resources, you have access to 1,000 resources at the end of the day. So how do we create a librarians OER network and keep sharing information, not only that is produced by the external world, the publishers and the journals and the book publishers and others, but also on our own, what we produce in our libraries through our production studios. Could we find a way to share it? Could we create open archives mechanisms? Could we liberate the expensive ideas that are packaged in journals that are becoming more and more expensive today to creating more an open education resource movement in our own setting? So I thought, I would leave these ideas with our academic librarians who are today with us, in terms of if you were to basically contribute to the reading mission. On one hand, you could work with the student community, particularly when it comes to preparing the students in terms of their ability to become actors in the reading mission, the teachers in the reading mission. There are ideas like each one teach one, each one share your books, bring your book boxes. You have your own wonderful ideas, and you shared a lot of these ideas yourselves. But on top of all the ideas that you have, I wanted to leave you with these thoughts. Create an open text movement, create an OER movement, create production studios in your own libraries, curate knowledge, reproduce knowledge, develop an OER network of academic librarians. But as librarians, become teachers of promoting information literacy, digital literacy, critical thinking, evaluation of information, and logical reasoning, argumentation, capabilities among the learning community. This is what I think as librarians we could do. Once we do this, we are basically not reactive actors. We are becoming a proactive actor in a way, in the larger scheme of things, as to how we could basically enhance through the reading habits, enhances society and its value and its ability to be productive and be valuable to the larger world, to the country at large. And we can play that role as librarians. So I wanted to stop here my quick lecture and my intervention. But basically, I can take up some questions. I don't know what is the time now. Yeah, we have some
Yeah, 15
30
more
minutes, Vignesh. So,
Yes.
so if you think we can take up 1 or 2 questions, I'm happy
Sure,
to do
sure,
so.
sure. We can take some questions. So kindly put your questions in the chat box so that Dr. Shadrach can respond to the questions.
How to evaluate for school students, OER.
OER for school students.
Yeah. So, can you suggest tools to create e-libraries? There are umpteen tools to create e-libraries. We can share the details with you. One e-library that we are aware of is something Dr. Vignesh is spearheading, the National Digital Library itself, which enables every school to actually bring in their own contribution and create their own e-libraries out of the National Digital Library. So it's we have NDLI as a wonderful example of how you can exploit NDLI, but how also you could contribute to NDLI, but also how could you use NDLI to create your own e-library for your school and your setting. So, instead of actually having to learn everything to do by ourselves, we can use the existing tools to do so. Now, when it comes to OER, somebody asked this question: how do we evaluate OER? Now, that's something that as librarians, we have the great opportunity to interact with professors, interact with students, and today most of the resources are evaluated. Even Google, Yahoo, and all these search engines, including NDLI, evaluate the resources on the basis of the reviews and the ratings that people themselves provide. And, we have at our disposal at least 1,000 people in an academic library. If it's a school library, a small school library, we have access to some 200, 300 people, be it students or teachers. They themselves become evaluators of any subject, any resource, any knowledge. So I think librarians, as much they interact with their stakeholders, it is going to be very helpful. We are going to enhance our ability to help others to evaluate knowledge resources, but also gain that skill ourselves to, to evaluate resources, reproduce it, remix it, and also become actors in not only just collecting information and disseminating, but also producing information.
So,
and maybe if Vignesh, for the sake of it, if even 2-3 people would raise hands and you would allow them to speak out their questions, I'm happy to listen, hear out,
sure.
hear them.
No, actually, in the webinar, I think that option is not available.
Or not available.
Yeah. They can put
Okay,
it in.
so sir, how do you manage all these wonderful ideas within 40 minutes of library period in school? My friend Lakshmi Prabha, the 40 minutes is not the only 40 minutes during the entire year. The 40 minutes are going to be repetitive. You're going to have children come to you in 40-minute time slots multiple times. And it is up to you how creative you could be in terms of utilizing their time. And it's not just the 40 minutes of your time with the students. You are going to be after the school hours, you're going to be with your teachers. You could use them, at times to produce content. When it comes to every 3 months having this session with your students, you could even have a 10-minute session, how to appreciate a book, how to look for critical information, how to evaluate a particular resource, and who is the author, what is the context, why that author is saying something, and why it is important for us to not just read books, read story books and whatnot, but also look for critical information that would add to our knowledge base. There are multiple ways that you can train yourselves to actually undertaking that role. And if you need support, webinars of this kind could be organized as to how librarians could help to promote information literacy, how librarians could help to promote digital literacy, how librarians could help to promote critical thinking, how librarians could help to promote evaluation of information resources and so on. These are all webinars you can attend. Today, there are so many online resources that you have in terms of educating yourselves and training yourselves. Our role is much more dynamic. Our role is to inculcate that lifelong learning and reading habits amongst our constituencies. And that's the role that we ought to be playing. In our school, students were not able to open the links. Even teachers are not able to. I think this is where you need to fight as librarians to basically help to create one. You have to see how other librarians have created their e-libraries, how they've liberated knowledge resources. And you have to, quite often you see librarians are in a very peculiar situation. They are seen to be very subordinate, to the teachers, and they are not considered to be very important. But in most of the developed countries, librarians are as in a university, after the vice chancellor, librarian is the biggest role that anybody could play. Similarly, in a school library, in many Western contexts, school librarians are next to the vice principals. That kind of command that they demand and they command. It's all because the librarians have become agile. They have become learners. They have become networkers. They have shown their value proposition in such a way that they command that respect. How do you, Krishna Prasad is asking, how do we overcome digital divide? I think there are multiple ways of overcoming digital divide today, and like it or not, COVID-19 has forced governments to invest more in communication technologies, making digital access much more affordable and accessible. But unfortunately, you see what is happening is because we are not training our students, particularly, I would think that librarians have a role to play. They end up actually looking at anything and everything other than knowledge resources. As I mentioned, they go to gaming, they go to social media, they are more on Instagram, they are more on Snapchat and whatnot. And they are more into communication and wasting a lot of time, unfortunately. But what we could be doing as librarians is to turn around the situation. I think this is a major challenge, and only in an academic setting, librarians have a bigger role to play in terms of changing the nature of students and their ability to exploit digital resources, and take away them from the Facebooks of the world, Snapchats of the world, and the Instagrams of the world, to more looking at knowledge resources in a meaningful manner. And this is a challenge that as librarians we need to undertake upon ourselves. And only then we can become critical actors in the reading mission, because reading mission is all about enabling people to read, appreciate the thought content that's in that book or in that knowledge resource, in the digital material, evaluate it, critically evaluate it, use it, and also reproduce with one's own perspective. This is the training that every school, every college is training people to. It's not about scoring marks in the exam. It's not about just merely understanding a subject in its own way, but putting the subject in the context of how we live, where we live. If it is arts, or humanities, how do what we read relates with the societal, the largest society at large, and this is where librarians have a role to play. And when it comes to science, it's not just about experimentation, but how do you use science? How do you popularize that science for the benefit of the society? And the teachers unfortunately don't do all that. They confine themselves to just teaching the subject very effectively. And there are very few actors in an academic situation setting that are available to expand the horizon of thinking amongst our student and teaching community beyond just confining themselves to the topics. And the librarians, if we excel, we have the ability to expand the horizon and enable people to think science for society, think humanities for society, think social science for the benefit of society, have that critical thinking ability, have that argumentation ability, have that ability to promote scientific and scholarship, appreciation of thought processes behind a particular knowledge piece, knowledge object, knowledge content. And I think we have a greater role to play. So I see a lot of other comments, but I'm also conscious of time. I don't want to keep you from your daily routine. So I would go by what Dr. Vignesh would recommend.
Uh, Maybe just a quick comment. So one of the person keep posting about going to the library as a head pain, and how this 20 minutes or 45 minutes that could be used. So one of the simplest ways, so I have been with this National Digital Library India for almost 2 years now. And one of the interesting ways through which the children are got back to the reading habit is by doing a simple storytelling session. So in many of the libraries where it's like full of energy, is where I have seen they start with the storytelling session. Once you hook them, and then they actually come back to the library, look for more. So they, instead of looking at libraries as places for boring, dull places, they started looking libraries as more of vibrant and positive spaces. So that's a good way that we can start looking at. Maybe Shadi can talk about more on some of the innovative ways through which we can bring back the children back to the libraries and make it a more fun way of learning. Over to Shadi.
Well, there are multiple ways of appreciating a book or a piece of story or a piece of document that we have. It is possible for us to ask the students of something that they like the most. So if there is 40 minutes and you ask students how they would like to spend that time, do they want to individually read, or do they want to collectively discuss a topic of interest, or do they want a session among them where a librarian himself or herself could pick up a particular knowledge resource or a book or a story book and narrate it, explain it, and help children to appreciate it, help the students to appreciate it, is something that a skill that we can gain. And Pratham, as an organization, has been doing this. The Tata Trust has been doing seminars and training sessions for librarians for the appreciation of thought content in a particular book. How to appreciate a book is something itself there is a training session around that. How to critically evaluate a particular piece of information or a journal article, if you're a college librarian, is something that it's an art by itself. So one could actually have that level of interaction with the students. And I've been a school librarian myself, and I recall, this was years ago, I recall how I used to conduct this storytelling sessions among students, and giving a piece of story for 5 minutes and asking them to come up with their own narration. There are today, as we speak, there are all sorts of artificial intelligence at play, where you could also create dynamic stories. So you could create the storybooks as you go, and the students can basically come up with their own versions. There are so many technologies today available that enable us to read the stories the way we want to read, rather than the way that the authors have penned it. So there are so many techniques that we can use in terms of creating that quest and the creativity and that interest amongst the readers, in terms of what Ranganathan would say, the third law is every book his or her reader, and every reader his or her book. The second law, we could easily translate in our daily life.
Thank you so much, Shadi, for this wonderful insight.
Shadi, it was a wonderful speech, and in fact, I was also learning from your speech and how these libraries can effectively reach the poorest to the poor with the knowledge empowerment. That is our mission also. And in fact, I am inviting all of you for day after tomorrow's webinar. Our Dr. K.T. Jalil, the Minister for Higher Education, Government of Kerala, is speaking on the problems and prospects of the higher education, because in higher education in the country, it's a lot of problems. And higher education, if it is done in the proper way, and it will be one of the best methods to shape the human life. So I am inviting all of you to join the webinar on 22nd, day after tomorrow, with Dr. K.T. Jalil. Thank you. Shadiji, I want you to involve more in these webinars will be organized during this 1 month program. The program initiated from 19 June to 18 July. Every day there will be a program, there will be a webinar. But since tomorrow is Sunday, and we are also learning and organizing things, and this Sunday we are not organizing any program. But hereafter, we'll be having one webinar every day, if Vignesh is also ready to accept my challenge, because he is the man who is controlling all this show. Thank you.
I just want to correct, I'm not controlling, I'm just helping you.
No,
Foundation, yeah. Thank you.
We are not having the pain. He is
Sure.
shouldering all the pain. I must appreciate him. I must congratulate him.
No, so it's okay, sir. So thank you so much once again, Shadi, for this wonderful insights and the thought-provoking ideas. So I'm sure all the participants might have really enjoyed it. So as we close the webinar, I have few information that I wanted to share. First and foremost, yes, there was a challenge in addressing the server of the foundation, because the unexpected huge inflow of registration forms has actually led us to downgrade our server actually crashed a couple of days back. So now our team has put in additional bandwidth, and they have created a cloud server to handle the requirement. However, still there are some applications that are not working. So our team is working day and night to fix all the issues. So kindly bear with us. And also our app has just been approved by Google Play Store. So there are still some minor changes that is being done. So kindly bear with us till tomorrow evening. And also the feedback link, we will post it on the same webinar registration section. So you will be able to submit your feedback and get your certificate from there. Kindly bear with us, all of you, and all the quiz and the competitions will be conducted. We have extended the deadlines for all the competitions, so we will be able to participate in all the competition till the first and second week of July. So you have time, so don't get panicked. Kindly wait for give us one more day. We will be able to fix all the challenges that we are facing currently. So once again, thanks to Dr. Shadrach and Mr. Balagopalji for being there with us in the entire webinar. And once again, very thankful to Shadi for joining this. Thank you, Shadi.
Thank you. And if people would like to contact me for any reason, I had given my email address. So please feel free to contact. I do my best to support the library community, in more than one way possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Shadiji, for your wonderful speech
Thank you,
and
Balagopal.
taking time to this.
Yeah, I'm ever grateful to Balagopalji for conceiving this whole idea of the national mission. And, if I were to tell something to the librarians, this kind of national mission, this kind of national activity enables us to come together. So, all these days you've been a librarian in your own right. You've been working in your library, in your own school, college, or wherever. And you are confined to only one small institution and maybe 100 to 1,000 students and teachers in your own right. But now becoming a part of a national mission enables us to be a part of a larger purpose for our lives. The larger purpose is something that people like Dr. Balagopal have been helping us to look at. And only when we become a part of a larger mission, we see ourselves beyond the confines of our institutions, our schools and colleges. So I'm thankful to this opportunity that brings all the librarians together as the main stakeholders in the process of creating and realizing the reading mission. And the reading mission is not going to be successful unless and until each one of us contributes to the same in our own way, so that tens and thousands of librarians, when they contribute to the reading mission, it becomes a people's movement, it becomes a national movement. And that's the vision Dr. Balagopal is pursuing. And that's the vision his father pursued, Shri P.N. Panikar, who turned Kerala into a more progressive society. If we want to turn India into a progressive society, as the Prime Minister mentioned, we need to emulate the Kerala model. We need to emulate the librarians network, the library movement and the literacy movement and the reading movement in the country. And I'm very, very grateful that the Prime Minister has accepted Dr. Balagopal's plea to create a national reading mission. The Niti Aayog is supporting this initiative. CBSE is supporting. The Ministry of Human Resource Development is fully endorsing this mission. We have various state governments, including the government of Kerala, supporting it. We had the Chief Minister yesterday endorsing the reading mission. So it is a movement, it is something that we should be proud of to be a part of. So thank you, librarians, for being a part of the reading mission.
Thank you.
So, Shadi, just a quick request. So, in the panelists, so kindly make me as the host so that I can do the recording part of the webinar. So, you may see Balagopal Panikar Foundation. So, just go over there and then there is an option more. So, just make me as the presenter or host.
So, where do I see the speaker's view? Or?
Participants. You click on the participants at the bottom.
Okay. Panelists.
And you will see two tabs. Panelists. So first one is, I think, first one or second one, Balagopal Panikar Foundation.
Make host. Okay.
Yes, yes. Kindly do that. And people want your email ID, Shadi. Could you just tell me? I will put it in the chat window.
It's Shadrach at call.org. Call stands for Commonwealth of Learning.
Sure.
And .org.
Okay, I will just. So I have entered Dr. Shadrach's email ID in the chat window. So kindly take note of it, and then if you want to contact him, you are free to do so. So once again, thank you, Shadi, for this wonderful webinar. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, participants. Bye.
നല്ല ഇവിടെ കുറച്ച് ഇവിടെ ഉടഞ്ഞടഞ്ഞ് കിടക്കുന്നു. അല്ല ശരിക്കാക്കാൻ